Greetings, Commanders! Today we're marching into Rebels and Patriots, a miniatures wargame that covers the glorious mess of the 18th and 19th century warfare. That's right, the American Revolution, the War of 1812, the Texas Revolution. Basically, any time someone in a tricorn said, "Liberty!" while someone in a red coat said, "Taxes, please." Rebels and Patriots is the same family as Lion Rampant, but instead of knights and castles, we've got muskets, cannons, and occasionally bagpipes. It's fast, fun skirmish game, where each player controls 40 to 60 soldiers in small units. In short, it's like reenacting history, except you don't have to stand in the rain wearing itchy wool trousers. Unless that's your thing, no judgment here. You build your force using points, usually 24. Each unit costs a certain number of points depending on how good, or hilariously, how bad it is. For example, you have line infantry, the bread and butter of the period. Think of them as 18th century equivalent to spam. Cheap, plentiful, and questionable when overcooked. Then you have light infantry. Faster, sneakier, prone to lurking in the woods like historical ninjas with muskets. Artillery, a single cannon that everyone pretends is very fair and balanced. You'll usually have 8 to 10 units in total, which will look great on the table, but importantly, it'll fit easily into a storage box on your way home. Turns in Rebels and Patriots are gloriously simple. On your turn, you'll pick a unit, give it an order, move, fire, attack, or maybe just hold the line and look stoic. But you must roll 2d6 to see if the men actually listen, because soldiers in this period were not machines, they were actually humans. Humans were often drunk, deafened by musket fire, or distracted by a nearby cow. Fail that roll, and the unit just stands there. Yes, your entire glorious battle plan can be ruined because Private Higgins was tying his shoe. Welcome to history. Infantry typically move 6 inches. Cavalry go further because, horses are a bit faster. Artillery mostly doesn't move because dragging a cannon through mud is, quite a painful experience, really. To see how far each of your units move, have a look at the list on page 23 of the rulebook. So terrain does affect movement. Difficult terrain halves the movement value. So with linear obstacles like walls and fences, the unit moves up to it and then halts. And then the following turn, it continues its go as normal. And of course, impassable terrain does what it says on the tin, and you can't go through it. Keep your units together. Cohesion matters. If your men are scattered too far apart, they stop being a unit and start being a collection of individuals with very poor survival instincts. Shooting is the heart of the game. This is the age of muskets after all. When you give an order to fire, you roll a bucket of dice, and depending on how many figures are in the unit, each hit is compared against your target's defence value. Enough hits and models are removed. So when one unit is trying to shoot another, the target must be within range and the shooter must have a clear line of sight to that unit. Providing they've got that, the unit then rolls either 12 dice if it's got no disorder markers, or 6 dice if it has 1 or more disorder markers. The shooter needs to roll equal to or better than their firing value. Now there are some modifiers which you can check out in the rulebook for full details. When it comes to removing casualties, you'll need 2 hits at short range to remove 1 figure, and at long range you'll need 3 hits. But here's the kicker. Muskets are inaccurate. You're more likely to hit the broadside of a barn than the enemy, unless you're very close. Which is why battles often involve both sides standing 20 yards apart, politely taking turns shooting, and waiting for someone to get bored enough to charge. Sometimes you'll want to get in close and fight hand to hand. This is called melee, or as the soldiers called it, absolutely not! In melee, both sides roll dice equal to their attack value. The loser takes casualties and often runs away. The winner gets bragging rights and possibly someone else's musket. So the procedure for combat, first of all, is you decide on who you're going to attack and who you're going to charge. You then roll to see if your unit activates and if it actually follows through and does the attack. Once you've done that, the defender then chooses whether he's going to stand and fight or is he going to evade and chicken out. If the defender chooses to stand or to countercharge, then the models move into contact, into base-to-base contact, and the fight begins. Now there are some modifiers and things, but I'm not going to go through those now. You need to check the rulebook for those. So when resolving the attacks, each side will roll a number of dice. It'll be 12 dice if your unit has no disorder markers. If the unit does have disorder markers, then it'll be only 6 dice. When removing casualties, they'll take a certain number of hits to cause a casualty. So it could be 2 or it could be more, depending on the circumstances and the modifiers that are applied. Again, check the rulebook for details. The unit that's lost the most figures loses the fight and they have to retreat. If both sides have lost the same number of casualties, then it's considered a draw, but the defender still has to retreat. Remember, melee in this era is risky. Bayonets are scary, but so is being shot at point blank range. Use it wisely or you'll just be the one providing a historical reenactment of a rout. This game isn't just about shooting and stabbing, it's about morale. Units take losses or are charged, they might have to test morale. Fail and they become shaken, which means they're less effective. Fail badly and they run off the table entirely. Now on page 34 and 35 of the rulebook, there are the rules for morale. Now I'm not going to go into a lot of depth on morale now, but basically if you get 1 disorder marker then you're considered disordered. If you get 2 then you're considered broken, and if you get 3 then you're actually routed from the table. Units at half strength or less are considered permanently disordered. So yes, your elite grenadiers can still be chased away by a group of ragtag militia in terrible haircuts if the dice feel like it. History is cruel. In Rebels and Patriots has plenty of scenarios. You're not just standing in a field trading musket balls like Pokemon cards. You might be escorting supplies, defending a bridge, raiding a village, or hunting down an enemy officer. Each scenario has different victory conditions, which keeps the game interesting. Of course, if you do want to just line up 2 armies and blast away, the rules fully support that too. It's your call, General. Each force has a leader, your dashing officer, reckless revolutionary or grumpy sergeant. Leaders add bonuses to morale and activation, but they can also get shot, and when they do, your whole force tends to panic, so protect them. Or if you're feeling slightly spicy, use them recklessly and see if history remembers them as brave, or just really bad at hiding. You win by achieving the scenario's objectives, or by making the enemy's army completely collapse into sad, shaky mess. Games usually last an hour or so, perfect for a quick skirmish before tea, or before you argue with your opponent about whether red uniforms made soldiers easier to shoot. Spoiler, yes they did. So there we have it, Rebels and Patriots, a game of bold charges, failed orders, inaccurate muskets, and history served with a side of dice. Whether you're storming a hill, defending a farm, or just reenacting your favourite bit of Hamilton with plastic soldiers, this game brings 18th and 19th century warfare to your tabletop. Now go forth, General, take command, and may your dice roll be truer than an 18th century musket, which admittedly isn't setting a very high bar.